Hello and welcome to Europe Trip Day 3. We will get to that picture a little bit later, but first we have to drive there. So we start out in our little town of Stelvio, Italy, and make our way up the valley through the most amazing road I've ever driven on in my entire life, up to the top of Stelvio Pass, and then quickly down to the Umbrail Pass and through Switzerland and back into Italy. A nice scenic drive past some very beautiful lakes there in Italy. Back over to the Austrian border and make our way all the way through Austria, back to Germany and the town of Fussen, and finally make our way to Neuschwanstein, that most amazing Cinderella castle. We start out with another amazing day in the town of Stelvio. We had an amazing breakfast, which I will talk about a little bit later here. First, we have to get to the pass. This is an amazing road. It was rated some of the best roads in Europe. Stelvio Pass is one of the best roads. It definitely has a lot of switchbacks, so if you get motion sickness, you might want to have a bucket handy just in case. Of course, you don't want to not watch this. It is so beautiful, and of course, I'm already staring at the road instead of looking up at the screen. Um, so, the road itself is a pretty skinny road. You certainly don't want to have any large semis or anything like that driving down this road. Oh, there was a few tour buses. We started first thing in the morning so that we could get out and go on before there was too much traffic, although we ran into the occasional slow driver, so all I do is just slow down a little bit more and wait for him to get a few turns out of the way and then blow past him a little bit later. That truck you saw, we just nicked him. I guess I was so close on the wall to the right. Jessica said I was only a few inches away, and just nicked the mirror with his rear bumper. We were riding behind those buses, so I didn't want to be stuck behind those buses going all the way up to the pass. So we stopped here at this hotel, got out, walked around a little bit. As you can see, there's several hiking trails going all over the place. And then we make our way back up. Already above the tree line here, the pass itself is up at 9,000 feet. There was a couple turnoff points there every once in a while, and we run into a little bit of construction up towards the top. Jessica was absolutely amazing on this drive. She knew that this was going to be the highlight of the trip for me, which it was, and so she just stayed completely quiet and kind of froze like a statue in that passenger seat, which was very awesome because I know that I was kind of at the upper level of my comfort zone while driving the car, which means I was probably out of the ballpark for the comfort zone for Jessica. So that was really cool. As you see here, we've made it to the top. There's the road that we just came up. As you can tell, some of the road actually passes underneath the road above it. And we hung out there at the top of Stelvio. I got a hat, which was really nice since I've been looking for a hat for a couple of years now. And now we make our way back down. We very quickly make our way into Switzerland here onto the Umbrail Pass. And this road is not as well known for its excellent driving ability. It was definitely much more broken down, and the guardrails were much more sparse and kind of non-existent, as you can see there on the right. Just not as much safety going on. It is always so much harder going down. You just, because you're already going downhill, it takes that much more braking in order to slow down, and it just is much more nervous. There was these little camp huts all over the place for hikers where they could just throw the gear into the house there and hang out for the night. It's free. You just whoever comes along does their thing. Oh, and here's the cows.
The cows in Switzerland.
No, those cow noises were not me and Jessica. Those were the actual cows mooing along there. We also stopped at this pretty little creek where Jessica was nice enough to take a couple pictures of my car and get that kind of special car picture, I guess, with the mountains, which was pretty cool. The cows, I believe, most of the animals in the high Alps like this, all of the flat land is taken over by farmland. So there really isn't any place for the cows to graze. And that town, by the way, was Valcheva. Valcheva. Uh, I'm probably gonna, yeah, just butchered that name. The next picture here coming up is Santa Maria Val Muster, and then Valcheva in the background there. There it is. Um, so yeah, anyways, there just isn't any room for the animals to graze down on the flatland here because it's all farmland. So they have to put them up on the side of these crazy steep mountainsides to graze in the grass out there. And everything was so green too. You would think in late September everything would be completely brown and there'd be nothing left, but everything was just so green. It was absolutely amazing. As you can see, here we are coming in to Italy, and we have a picture of the town of Talfers coming up here pretty quick. Alright, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit here and talk about the hotel that we stayed out in Stelvio. It was a really nice building, basically one of the old original buildings of the town that had been remodeled inside to basically brand new. It even had this really cool elevator in it, which held basically just the two of us with our bags, but it only had one door, so there was no interior door to the elevator. So when you got in and closed the door and the elevator started moving, the wall where the door was completely exposed, and so it moved kind of away from you as you moved up. The wall would kind of move down, which was kind of strange, but they had, I think it was like lasers or something, motion detectors, so that if you tried to push a door open on one of the floors while the elevator was still moving, the elevator would just stop absolutely immediately. We made a pit stop here in Italy right before we headed to Austria. We wanted to get some Italian wine and some Italian food there. It was still really early in the morning, so we were expecting to get all the way to the castle basically for kind of a late lunch, and that didn't end up happening because we got we just got into so much traffic, and every single day took longer than we kind of expected, and we're actually going to be coming up onto the Austrian border here pretty soon, I believe. So anyways, so there it is. And so we did buy a couple things. We bought the wine, and we ended up not drinking it that night because we were so busy doing other stuff that we didn't get to drink it until the next day when we were in the heart of Germany. That is notes here. That is the town of Notters. And then there's another picture coming up here, which is kind of a castle called Festung Notters in Austria. And that's all the pictures I got until we get to Neuschwanstein. There it is, right there. So where was I? Ah, yes. So the wine we didn't drink until the next day, and then we also bought I believe it was a salami, which was wrapped in plastic, and we realized after we bought it that we had no way of opening it up. We had no knives, no scissors, nothing, and so it stayed in our backpack all the way back to Denver, and we went through security 4 different times, I think, at the airports, and they never took it from us, which blew my mind. We also had a huge thing of toothpaste as well that they never took from us, which was kind of funny. And maybe it's because, they saw that I was an employee because I had my badge and everything like that, and I don't know, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. So, anyways, let me backtrack once again back to our hotel room. It was one of the biggest hotel rooms that we had on the trip. It was actually 2 separate rooms that had a kitchenette and a little dining table and all kinds of nice little things. And then they actually grew their own apples there right on in their yard, on the lawn. And so they had a basket at the front door of these fresh apples that you could eat from their tree. It was absolutely amazing. And then the breakfast, there actually wasn't supposed to be a breakfast. When we reserved the room, it said no breakfast included. And we get up in the morning, and the two hosts that lived there were super nice people and spoke very, very little English. So it's a little tough to talk to them, but we were able to get through it. So, anyways, so we woke up in the morning and headed down, and they're like, "Oh, here, show you to this room." And so we walk into this room, and here's some tables, and of course the sliced meat, cheese, and the bread, and their homemade jam, which was freaking amazing. And we tried to get what kind of jam it was, or how they made it, and they just, because of the language barrier, we just couldn't get very much out of them. It was they couldn't really understand what we were asking, and we couldn't really understand what they were saying either. But it was absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend that place if you ever get to go to Stelvio Pass, which I also highly recommend if you have any interest in driving whatsoever. You have to get a nice car and go up Stelvio Pass. There were other people that were in their little 3-cylinder rental cars that did not do so hot going up those very steep, windy roads. And of course, the buses were absolutely horrible. Some of the buses couldn't even make it around the hairpin turns. Like, they actually had to back up and go forward like 3 different times, do like a 3-point turn just to make it around the corner, which is kind of funny because when we were in Germany at the Eagle's Nest, German efficiency, obviously they had these amazing buses that went up a very similar road, which it was closed in 1950. They closed it to the public because it's such a dangerous road. But the buses in Germany, they had designed and modified specifically for that road. So the engines and the transmission and the steering was all different. So they were just flying up and down that road, where then we go into Italy, and these poor little buses that are made for driving through cities, probably, they just couldn't do it at all. They were driving, like 15 miles an hour up these hills and then doing 3-point turns to go around every corner, which is why we had stopped at that hotel. We literally sat there for probably 15-20 minutes just watching the buses go up the hill. And when they finally made it high enough up that we thought that we wouldn't be able to catch up to him by the time we got to the top, which actually worked out pretty well. All right, we're getting pretty close to the castle now, just about to cross into Germany. So I'm going to start talking about Neuschwanstein. The castle started construction in 1868, which is pretty late for castles to be built. But this was actually a really popular time to remodel or rebuild castles that were already in ruins and to add on to castles that already existed in order to make them more spectacular and more impressive. And Neuschwanstein was certainly no exception. Uh, the castle, they began construction in 1868, which just happened to be the same year that the previous king died. And so King Ludwig II now came into reign and inherited all of that money and wealth in order to be able to build the castle. He didn't use any taxpayer money or anything like that, but he did take a lot of loans from other royal families all across Europe and the world in order to pay for this. It was basically a no expense spared castle. And then when Ludwig II died, which he actually died very unknown circumstances, they just found his body in the shores of a lake. And it was like waist deep water, and there was no wounds or anything. He had just mysteriously died, although he wasn't exactly very popular back then. But when he died, all of his projects stopped and completely came to halt. So this castle, which you can see here, that's our view from the hotel to the castle. We were very close. So anyways, so when Ludwig II died, construction just completely stopped. And so this castle is actually unfinished. And when you take a tour inside, you can actually see unfinished parts where it's just white wall basically. There's nothing there, and there's actually supposed to be more to the exterior of this castle as well, such as right where we're standing there in the picture. There's supposed to be a monastery, I believe. But anyways, this is the castle. It was very beautiful. There's also a bridge on the back of the castle, which is called Marienbrook, and that's where we took these pictures from. It's absolutely amazing views all the way around. Very, very pretty. And that's another castle, I believe by Ludwig II as well, which is called the Schloss Hohenschwangau. We also had dinner in Fussen. We had an excellent dinner. It's a fun little town, very quaint, very walkable, like a lot of towns in Europe, and stayed there pretty late at night. And then we went back to Neuschwanstein at night and walked around a little bit. It was very safe, and we felt very secure. That's it. Thanks again for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.